So, is your faith strong or weak? Do you know someone whose faith differs from yours? Whether maybe they're stronger in faith or maybe you are. Well, today from Romans, we're going to take a look at those whose faith is stronger and those whose faith maybe isn't as strong, and the divisions that it can cause in the church. Everyone, I'm Pastor Jim Scher, and welcome to Sharing the Word Fellowship. We're a Christ-centered and grace-filled ministry where we teach solely from the Scriptures. And today we're going to take a look at Paul's letter to the Romans and chapter 14, starting with verse 1. Except the one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not. And the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall. And they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand. One person considers one day more sacred than another. Another considers every day alike. Each of them should be fully convinced in their own mind. Whoever regards one day as special does so to the Lord. Whoever eats meat does so to the Lord. For they gave thanks to God, and whoever abstains does so to the Lord, and gives thanks to God. For none of us lives our lives alone, and none of us dies for ourselves alone. If we live for the Lord. And if we die for the Lord. So, whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. Our scripture is Romans chapter 14, verses 1 through 8. And initially, when you hear this, you hear about one person whose faith is strong enough that allows them to eat meat, while another's faith is weak and they eat only vegetables. This is not a current day teaching on whether you should be a vegetarian or not. This goes back to the first century AD. And the problem that some had in eating meat that they thought might have been offered up to an idol at one time. What do I mean by that? Well, the Romans had many gods, and they would sacrifice animals to their gods. Many times the animals that were sacrificed would end up in a marketplace being sold. So some were afraid that they might actually be eating meat that at one time was offered unto a Roman god. While other people said, hey, it's just meat. And they don't have gods. It's just an idol, or they don't have a living God. It's just stone, or it's wood or clay. So their faith was strong enough that they had no trouble eating meat. While others couldn't sleep at night if they might ate meat and they thought it was at one time offered up to a Roman god. Paul starts this lesson by saying, except the one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. We still, thousands of years later, have disputes like this. There are those who will not go anywhere near a bar room. They don't drink. And they might look down on those whose faith is stronger and has no trouble going out and having pizza and sharing a pitcher of beer with their loved ones. There are those who don't go to R-rated movies. They observe special days, as it says in here. While to another person, it's just another day in the week. There are those who will homeschool their children. They're fearful of the public school systems and the secular world out there. And so, why do I talk about this? Because as a pastor, many times this ends up coming across a pastor's desk. did you know that so-and-so and his wife, they were out the other night. I saw them, and, they were drinking. Okay? Or the person says, do you know that this went on? Or do you know the person went on a hunting trip and I saw him in a picture holding a bottle of beer? And so this many times can end up coming across a pastor's desk. So one person strong in faith, they realize if they're drinking a beer or they're going out and having dinner with their wife and sharing a bottle of wine, their faith is strong. They don't think they're going to end up burning in hell. There are other people whose faith is not that strong. They view alcohol in a different way. But there's all kinds of things. Gambling on the lotto. Again, R-rated movies. The school systems of the secular world. But our lesson here as a church is to understand, in this case, these people were early converts to Christianity that Paul was addressing, many of which would have been Jewish. And their life and their idea of being in right standing with God was based on a very strict way of living and obeying those 613 do's and don'ts of the Jewish world. And so this happens yet in this day of ours today. Many folks who are just coming to know Christ and maybe are immature yet in their walk, they might have problems. They feel that they don't quite understand the scope of grace, and so one day is more special, or leading a certain lifestyle to them is important in their walk. But as Paul says here, and he sums it up, and the best way I can say it here is that whoever eats meat does so for the Lord, and they give thanks to God. All right? So if your faith is strong and you have no trouble that you're going out and having a drink with your wife, that's okay if you do so for the Lord. If you have no trouble with your walk, you do so for the Lord. But it also says here that whoever abstains does so for the Lord. So the person who maybe lives that strict life, if you will, and very strict and narrow, very straight-laced, if you're doing it because you think that you're somehow or another getting the balance sheet in your favor with God, well, you weren't taught properly. We're all sinners, and while a Christian should lead a Christian-like lifestyle, don't confuse that with your salvation. And so if you do these things, if you're strict in your walk, do so for the Lord. But, as it says, to start with, we in the church should not argue over disputable matters and over whose one faith is different from the other and their walk is different from the other. However you do it, do so for the Lord. And so that's our lesson in Romans chapter 14. And again, let's say, as Paul starts, let's be acceptable to each other and the way that they live, and not judging each other in the way that they live. And so, however you have your faith and however you show it and however you do in your day-to-day walk, do so for the Lord. Thank you very much, and go with God until our teaching next weekend. Again, I'm Pastor Jim Scher. This is Sharing the Word Fellowship. You can visit us on our Sharing the Word Fellowship group on Facebook. Also, you can see this teaching and all my other ones on my YouTube channel at Rev, R-E-V, James Scher. Thank you very much.